Welcome to Punch TV. On our last episode, we talked to superstar artist Tom Grummett about his experience with the death of Superman. Man, we could have talked all day, and we kind of did. So since Tom had generously taken the time to come down to Punch TV headquarters, we filmed more than we could fit in the show. So now we bring you more of our conversation with Tom Grummett. We have superstar Tom Grummett on set with Tony and I here on Punch TV, and we're going to talk a little bit about how you got into comics, some of the different storylines that you've done over the years. For those folks who don't know, Tom has done like a gajillion different comics. When I was looking this up on the internet this week, there's like 500 different comics that you have worked on that are like big names, big titles, which is really exciting.
It is.
What's your favorite that you've worked on?
Oh, that's a tough one. There are a few highlights, and for a variety of different reasons. I loved working on the Superman books, like, continuously, because that was kind of like getting up on stage with Springsteen. So that's a highlight. That's right, he was the boss. And here and there, Superboy 2, issue 2, was a joy to read, simply because it was the first time I had actually worked on something where I didn't see the wires. You know, special effects guys can't go to movies because they know how all the stunts are done. It was one of the first things I'd ever done that I just read through as a comic and enjoyed. So that's a favorite. Another one was a few years back. I did a book for Marvel, a one-shot, Mystic Arcana, I think it was called. I had the Black Knight. So I got, instead of drawing guys in spandex jumping around in cigar box cities, I got to draw swords and chainmail and forests and castles and wizards and stuff like that. So that was a joy to do. And I guess Fantastic Four Annual, most recently, because I got to work with Tom Palmer, who's a hero of mine.
Is that one thing that you look forward to, is working with different writers?
I love collaborating.
Yeah.
It's what I loved about working on the Superman books, is they would get us all together. So I'd be sitting in the room with Jerry Ordway and Roger Stern and John Bogdanoff and Louise Simonson, and we'd all be throwing ideas around together. The collaborative part, being a big team, was always something I was really comfortable with and that I really enjoyed.
Recently, I heard an interview with Neil Gaiman, and he was saying something about how every once in a while when he worked with an artist, he would throw out some impossible idea just so that he would put that artist in their place and see, what they could do. Have you ever worked with somebody like that who was just like, gave you something that seemed impossible?
No, I can't say that's ever occurred where there was any kind of interference where a writer was trying to make my job harder. I know that when I worked on the Superman books, all the pencilers would compete. Like, this is pre-internet, so every week DC would send us out a FedEx box full of all the stuff that had been done that week on the Superman books by everybody.
Cool.
So there were scripts, there were plots, there were penciled pages, there were inked pages, like photocopies. So I'd go through these things and I go, oh, look what Bogdanoff did this week. I got to beat that, So there was a lot of that kind of friendly little competition.
That's awesome. One thing that I noticed that I think makes your panels distinct from other artists is that, like, it's eye candy. Like, you don't just put like the guy in the foreground and a little bits and pieces here. Like, it's rich, it's deep. There's always lots going on in the background. Does that take like a ton more time to do as an artist, or is it just come as part of the natural process?
It seems more organic and part of the process to me. I kind of give each page and each panel what the story demands. And one little rule of thumb is I try to draw a page as though that's all the information that the reader's going to get. There won't be any word balloons to explain things.
Okay.
So that it helps keep the storytelling more crisp and concise, so that opening a page, the reader should be able to tell who's there, where's it happening, what's going on, fairly clearly and simply, if possible.
Okay, digital versus more traditional methods, because one thing that I'm finding in a lot of books now is that it seems like some artists are kind of cheating, like on their backgrounds it's just like sort of color, some blurry stuff, so it's like just cut and pasted. How does technology play into what you do? Do you use any like Photoshop stuff, or is it pretty much very traditional methods for you still?
I have used Photoshop on occasion to make revisions to pencils, but I can only do that when I'm sending scans to an inker, who will then print them off and then ink those. If I'm sending actual boards, then I pretty much have to fix everything with an eraser if there's little changes that have to be made. Yeah, technology has changed things quite a bit. For instance, this page here you've got from Speed Force Convergence, it's the raw pencils.
Yes.
Because a scan went to the inker and it was inked that way. So I had the original pencil still in my possession.
That's what the finished product ended up looking like. And of course, then we have the beautiful pencils right here. So yeah, it's amazing the transformation that it can take.
And now all the lettering is all done digitally.
Right.
So I get original art back when an actual physical board has gone to the inker and then 2 years later been returned to me, and there's no word balloons on them at all.
Yeah.
But it has saved a tremendous amount of time, because when I started in the business, everything went courier. I would pencil a page, throw it in a box, send it to DC. DC would take it, send it to the letterer, who would then hand letter every board. Then it would go to the inker. So FedEx bills are a lot lower now.
You did have your own comic with your own company for a bit, The Privateers. Now this was a while ago, so
Yeah, 80-something.
87.
yeah.
87.
So I imagine back then it was a lot more expensive to try to get your book printed and distributed. Do you want to talk about your experience in forming that independent, creative-owned comic?
Well, actually, it was not my company.
Okay.
It was a group of local guys. The original plan was to acquire the rights and to publish Captain Canuck. And they wanted me to draw it. And I have somewhere buried in my original art an entire Captain Canuck story that never saw print. The deal for acquiring the rights fell through, but the company still had all the infrastructure to go ahead and publish. So I said, I'll just make something up. So I decided, in my infinite wisdom, to attempt to write and draw my own comic book. And what it taught me, and it was kind of fun, and it actually holds together pretty well. What it did teach me is that I am not a writer. Drawing is way easier, because there's a whole different set of mental muscles that goes into writing. If the bus went past, I'd get irate. If a butterfly made too much noise, I'd be throwing bricks at it, that kind of thing. So I'm really not the right temperament to be a writer.
Was this the end of this the company then? After this, did they do other stuff that you were involved in as well, or was this?
No,
Vanguard?
That was pretty much it. Two
Yeah.
issues and out. Because, as Jody says, comic books are a very expensive thing.
Yeah.
And you have to have pretty deep pockets to run 6 months, enough to start realizing the profits back from the sales from the first issue to continue going on.
You're doing your own stuff. You're writing and drawing your own things, and all of a sudden you're working for DC. How did that happen? Just meet the right time, right place, or did you work diligently with sending in applications, or?
That didn't seem to be the way things worked. I did Privateers, 2 issues, which were distributed essentially worldwide. Vanguard folded. I got contacted by other small publishers in Canada and other places, and would do work here and there for those publishers, usually for no money. I was at a convention in Toronto, ostensibly to get together with yet another small publisher, and ran into Ty Templeton, who at the time was drawing Justice League for DC, and also a Canadian. And he had seen The Privateers, and he said, "I saw your book, liked it a lot." He said, "Do you want to work for the big boys?" I said, "Yeah, sure, Ty." He says, "I'm going to send it to my editor." So the day after I get back from this convention, Monday morning, I got a phone call from Mark Waid at DC. He says, "Do you want to do a Secret Origin story? Animal Man?" I said, "Sure, I can do that." I didn't know who Animal Man was. So I had to do a little bit of research. And he said, "Yeah, okay, just do me up a couple of sample pages." And so I made up a little 2-page thing with Animal Man in it, and started working with Grant Morrison immediately. So, yeah, it was just more or less a question of, if I got contacted and asked if I could do something, the answer was always yes.
Yep.
And from there, I did a year's worth of fill-ins for DC. Got tapped to replace George Perez on New Titans, and work with Marv Wolfman. And one thing kind of led to the other, to where I'm suddenly drawing Superman and working on Robin and Superboy and a variety of other different things.
Awesome.
And the rest is history. Amazing.
Amazing.
Well, we are looking forward to everything that you put out in the future, because it's always great. I am especially a fan, for good reason, of your cover that you did for Amazing Stories that features
There you are.
me looking so awesome, Riverdale style, and Tony looking a little more Sluggo, Little Lulu style. So
Sluggo.
But it's so great. It is so awesome, and I'm so proud of this. If you want to win a copy of this, we'll get it signed by Tom. Write into us on our Facebook page or on Twitter and tell us which one of Tom's creations is your favorite, and you might be the lucky winner of this beautiful and exclusive cover. Well, thanks for joining us in the studio today, Tom. We really appreciate you coming in, and
It was fun.
we love your work.
Thank you.
We do.
Thank you.
Like you guys too.
Thank you.
All right, we'll be right back.
Punch TV is brought to you in part by Amazing Stories, providing Saskatoon with comics, games, toys, graphic novels, t-shirts, and more for over 22 years. Online at AmazingStoriesComics.com, in person on 8th Street in Saskatoon.
My fellow punchers, I am pleased to tell you today that I have signed legislation at Shaw TV Saskatoon that will outlaw tweet reviewing of the raw American films forever. After this episode, we begin bombing in 5 minutes. Now, if you don't know, that was from Reagan in the 80s, and he said that, and people thought that they were going to bomb Russia. It was a big deal. Yeah, see? Political. So I finished House of Cards, and spoiler alert, Donald Trump didn't win. Season 4 is on Netflix right now, 90 out of 100. London has fallen, and so has 9 million shell casings, helicopters, and bodies. Gerard Butler kicks old school, 59 out of 100, hashtag America. America. On Black Friday, Cash, carrying green poison, tears through New York City. The government activates the Division. The Way Down the Law, 73 out of 100, available on Xbox One, PS4, and PC. Colony on USA Network. Aliens have arrived, and politicians, with their Red Hat Army, are showing the aliens what humanity's all about. 83 out of 100. In Zootopia, Luther the mayor is booted from office by Mary's power-hungry pet. The sloths are still trying to react. 86 out of 100. And this concludes TweetBeat. I ask for your prayers to help me in every tweet that I do. May Jean-Luc Picard bless North America, and may he bless each and every one of you.
My name is Tony, and welcome to The Collector. Today we are with my friend Wrenn, and we're talking about pop figures. Pop figures are actually from a company named Funko. Funko's been around since 1989, but the pop figure craze has never been more exciting. With all kinds of licensing, they have over 100 different licenses for pop figures. How's it going, Wrenn?
Awesome.
Awesome, good to see you. So basically, I want to talk about you with pop figures. So you
Cool.
started off buying pop figures,
Yeah.
and you've So when about did you start?
About 4 or 5 years ago, I just thought they were really funny, really cute, and I mean, they don't take up a lot of space in my house, which is like, it's at a premium, so.
Yeah.
And the price is right, I mean.
Also, pop has a phenomenal rate of increase in value. Like some of the early stuff, some of the exclusives have really gone up in value. Do you collect pop for the value, or are you just kind of having them for yourself?
No, they're for myself, for my own
Yeah.
personal collection, but I mean, I've got lucky, like some of the ones I bought 4 years ago are worth a lot of money now.
Yeah.
Like some of the old Marvel ones, old DC ones, you bought them at the shelves off the store, and now they're worth $70, $80. I
Nice.
got one that's worth about $250,
Yeah.
which is like.
Now, are you keeping all the packaging and stuff for everything, so you actually can sell them for that amount?
Okay, so yeah, the ones I know that are worth money, I save the boxes for, but like I don't have space for them. Like
Yeah. How many pops do you have then?
I have, I think over 200.
Yeah.
I've really slowed down though. I mean, they come out with so many licenses.
Yeah, 200 is amazingly amount of big. That's a lot of pop figures.
Yeah,
So that's
yeah.
like you have a room full of pop figures then.
I have like an entire wall and then more over on another bookshelf.
Nice,
Yeah.
cool. Do you like pop figures in the sense that also you can create your own pop figures? Is that like a big part of what you do with the figures? Or?
I mean, I got into customizing because I always looked at my shelf and I wanted more. You know, I wanted more things on there, and they're pretty easy to work with.
Tell me
and
about how you start. How would I start off
Sure.
customizing a figure?
Funko came out with these blank bodies here. They just came out with male and female, and
Yeah.
you can do anything you want to them. Right here, I got one that is half finished. Like I've added sculpting clay and I've sanded it a bit. It needs a lot of work, but the next stage would be painting. And
Cool.
Yeah.
So this has become like this is an art form as far as like taking making your own pop figures. So.
Sure, yeah. I mean, I like to draw, so I get to do that. I like to work on my hands, I get to do that.
Nice,
So I
cool.
mean, it's certainly a creative hobby.
So I
for
noticed,
sure.
I noticed that some of the ones that you've done are kind of on that side of the table. And I see here that you have 3 that you've taken. Is this something that you've done? You've taken the actual pop figure and just added to it and painted it?
This is Rick Grimes from The Walking Dead, and I liked him because he has a hat on and a gun in his hand. So I thought like any cowboy character you want to do,
Yeah.
would be a perfect base for it. So I made 2 figures out of the same base. I made Django from Django Unchained and the Man with No Name from The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
Oh, cool. Awesome.
Yeah.
That's super sweet.
So like, you know.
That is great. So I can see you've got the character, but you've also added the different clothing, the facial hair is different, and obviously you've taken off parts and added parts and so forth too. That's amazing. That's super cool.
Thanks, man.
So also I've seen that you have the Punisher. This is like the Punisher that the store-bought one and the one that you made. Did you make it from the same pop figure then, or did you?
At the time I made my Punisher, the Funko version wasn't available.
Yep.
So I bought the male version of this
Yeah.
and chopped off his hands, and I had some guns in the
Nice.
in the accessories bin, and I just whipped them up. And about 6 months later, Funko came out with the official one, and it looks a lot like the one I did.
Yeah,
so.
that's awesome. Well, you do a really good job. So are you selling your pop figures? Is this something that you've thought about buying them and selling? I know that online people on eBay make
Yeah.
pop figures and sell them. Is that something that you've thought about doing? or-
Like my own customs?
Yeah.
Yeah. I haven't like done any for anybody except myself.
Yeah.
It's more of like a personal thing so far, but
Yeah.
like, I mean,
Okay, how about this? Would you be able to make a pop figure of me in all my splendid glory? Would you be able to do that? And maybe what we'll do is if you could do that in the future, then maybe we'll raffle it off on the show, and we'll give the money to a charity. How was that sound? Would you
Cool,
do that
man.
for me?
Yeah.
Cool. I'd even pay
For you, Tony.
I'd even pay for the equipment or whatever you would need. No, I
Yeah.
won't. You would have to come up with that.
Oh, okay.
You come up with that. All right, Rhett. This is amazing. This is so cool. I've not really been into pop. I bought a few pop figures, and one of the pop figures I bought, I didn't even want it, and I got it from a friend of mine, and it's worth like $300. And I was trying to sell for $30. No one would buy it. Now it's worth $300. So there's a huge, as a collector, there's a huge amount of money that can be made from these things as well. I'm not sure how much more, the newer stuff would be worth anything, but yeah. As far as collecting goes, there's a lot of collectors that like it as well.
You betcha.
So, cool. Thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thanks, Tony.
Awesome.
Thanks for
And
having
we'll
me.
be right back after these messages.
With community enhancement as their goal, the Justice League of Saskatoon aims to bring smiles to the faces of young and old. Do you think you have what it takes to join this prestigious crew? The JLS is waiting for you. Visit their Facebook page, JLS Justice League of Saskatoon, for more information on how you can make our city a better place to be. Then grab your cape and fly. All right, we're here with Craig the Movie Geek, and at the end of this month, Ratchet & Clank comes out. And so we thought we would talk a little bit about video game movies, so lay it on us.
Yeah, which I guess is either best movies about video games or just movies that deal with video games in some capacity, because the problem was, we like to do a little bit of a list on this show every episode, but I sat down to think of 5 good video game movies, and unfortunately I couldn't.
Yeah. Why do you think that is? Why do you think video games don't transition too great to movies?
Well, they're universally terrible for some reason. I think I think it could be done. I think just for some reason they haven't figured out how to adapt the sort of the story and the world of video games to a film, which is like a different medium, as you have to do when you adapt a book or anything else. The one great example I thought of is if you look at like the Marvel movies, which are obviously based on comic books, and there have been some comic book movies that work really well, some that don't. They've done a pretty good job there of sort of transitioning what's at the heart of those characters and stories from the comics, but bringing them into sort of a real world, a real Hollywood cinema world.
Right.
Which I just think video games haven't quite figured out how to do that. It may be because, a video game's like a 10 or 20 hour long experience with a story.
Yeah, you're not going to make like an 80-hour Skyrim movie.
Yeah. Part of the problem too, I think, is there's a director named Uwe Boll who is notoriously called one of the worst directors of all time. He's made 10 video game movies.
Ouch.
So, so guys like that are
Somebody needs to tell him, like, enough.
slow down. Yeah. Well, we do have a guy named Justin Kurzel who just made Macbeth with Michael Fassbender. He's making the Assassin's Creed movie, which also stars Michael Fassbender and Marion Cotillard. So maybe they'll do something good there. I'd have to hope that, like, one of my heroes, Michael Fassbender, can do no wrong. But so I was thinking about video game movies, and there's obviously like a bunch of different kinds of them, good or bad. I mean, you take something like Mario Brothers or Street Fighter, like those classic 80s, 90s video game movies, and they're terrible, but those ones are so terrible that they're fun to go watch. Like, both of them, I think, have been episodes of the podcast How Did This Get Made, which is a great podcast if you haven't checked that one out. But some of the best ones, I think, at least from the 80s, are ones that weren't based on games specifically, but they were about games at the time. In the 80s, after Pong and Atari and television and all that stuff, and Coleco, the rise of that sort of video game business and
Pac-Man
zeitgeist.
fever, everybody had it.
Exactly. So, movies like War Games, The Last Starfighter, which is a great plot. It's about a video game that's like in a gas station or whatever, and this kid keeps playing it, and it turns out it's a recruiting mechanism. So all the high score players, the aliens come down to find you to see if you could be their new like starfighter guy. And then obviously you can't really talk about this without mentioning Tron.
Yes.
Which probably doesn't really hold up, but when I was like 10 years old, man, that was the coolest movie around.
Well, and Activision had Deadly Discs, which was a really good video game.
Yeah. There were a couple of good Tron.
It's like a game that was a spin-off from the movie, which was about video games. It's like so meta, it's blowing my mind. Okay, so what are some actually like good video game or video game themed movies to watch?
I think the two video game movies that I could actually name that were decent, and I won't even say good, is like Silent Hill. At least captures enough of the video game. It's not a great movie, but at least captures it. And the first Resident Evil movie, I would say, again, it's not a great movie per se, but it's a fun kind of popcorn movie, and it does capture the game well. The series kind of goes off the rails eventually, but that's what happens when they make money and they start pumping them out. But the two movies that I think have done a really good job of, just living in that video game world. One of them is Wreck-It Ralph, more of a kids movie. That one's, a really fun imagining what it would be like inside a video game. But I'd have to say probably my favorite would be King of Kong, A Fistful of Quarters. It's like this very archetypal characters, like you have your Luke Skywalker and your Darth Vader, and they're playing head to head at like being the Donkey Kong champion, and it's just this crazy fun little documentary.
It's an anthropological look into that world.
Totally.
And it's fascinating.
Yeah.
It's really, really well done.
It's fascinating, and it's as the story's as good as the sort of documentary observation. So yeah, if you haven't seen that one, it's definitely worth checking out.
Okay, so the key to take away then is movies about video games, good. Movies based on video games, not so good.
So far, I mean,
so far.
Somebody will break the code eventually, hopefully.
Maybe Ratchet and Clank will be wonderful.
Maybe.
All right, well, thanks for sharing your feelings about video games and picks, and hopefully we'll have some good news to report in the future for everyone who watches video game movies. All right, we'll be right back after these messages.
This April, destroy them all. When a galactic force threatens the world,
I'm going in.
find your courage.
Meet the sheepinator. Uh-oh.
And kick. Boom, baby! Some asteroid. Ratchet and Clank.
It is curious that the sudden cessation of velocity did not cause either of you to... Oh dear.
Don't worry, Cadet. It happens to the best of...
Punch TV is brought to you in part by Amazing Stories, providing Saskatoon with comics, games, toys, graphic novels, t-shirts, and more for over 22 years. Online at AmazingStoriesComics.com. In person on 8th Street in Saskatoon.
Well, that's a wrap on another episode of Punch TV. Thanks again to Tom Grummett, our pop collector Wrenn Moorman, and of course to Tony, Hank, Craig, and the rest of our crew. And a ginormous thank you to our producer, Jackie Kripke, who is leaving us to have a baby. We will see you in a year, Jackie, and we'll miss you. Congratulations. Well, while Jackie is counting down the days to her delivery, we're counting down the days to the happiest day of the year. Remember to mark your calendars for Saturday, May 7th, free comic book day. You can go to any comic book store in North America and get free comics. Punch TV will be at Amazing Stories talking to all you comic book fans who make the day great, and we'll have the highlights on an upcoming show. Thanks for watching, and keep your dukes up.
Are you sweating yet?
A little bit.
Really? Do you need some makeup?
No.
Because if you need makeup, we can get makeup.
When was the last time you powdered somebody's noggin?
I do it more often than you think.